The NFL playoffs begin this weekend, and this weekend, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, our Philadelphia Eagles will be playing host to the Green Bay Packers. I don't know if I would have preferred the Packers or the Commanders. On one hand, I kind of preferred the Commanders just because of all that BS that they were talking after beating Kenny Pickett. But I also think that it's possible that the Packers are a better matchup at this point in time for the Philadelphia Eagles. Playing divisional opponents in the playoffs can certainly be risky business. It's just a little oddity. It's a team that knows you better. It's a team that's seen you twice this year. And in the Commanders' sake, they've seen the Eagles fairly recently, whereas the Packers, we haven't played since week one. And both of these teams have obviously had some changes, but I do think we can look back to week one just to kind of get an idea as to how some of this game might go. Now, obviously, the Eagles picked up the win, so that's a great start for us, 34-29. The Eagles were running a different defense at that time. So I don't want to focus too much on what Green Bay's offense did because Quinyon wasn't the corner one. DeJean wasn't playing. The pass rush wasn't operating the way it was. It was a lot of zone and less faith in man, and the scheme has certainly changed. Offensively, though, what the Eagles can do to the Packers, I think some of that we can put some stock in, right? Jalen Hurts had a sloppy beginning to the season. The two interceptions in this game were bad, but Saquon Barkley did pretty good against this Packers defensive line, who runs a lot of cover two, opens up a lot of things in the run lane. Now, if they choose to stack the box, A.J. Brown, 5 for 119 and a touchdown. No Jaire Alexander for the Packers. Devonta Smith, 7 for 84. The Eagles' top two wide receivers, if the Packers so choose to stack the box, are built to move down the field. It could be very similar to what we saw in that Steelers-Eagles game, where they said, we are stopping Saquon Barkley. That is what we were doing. And Jalen Hurts said, not a problem, because I got two absolute studs at wide receiver to throw the ball to. Or it could be kind of what we saw here. The Packers show some mixed looks, and as long as Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense can identify what they're seeing, they can move the ball. That is one of the things I love about this matchup. I have faith that the Eagles will be able to move the ball on this Packers unit. The Packers as well, it's worth noting, this year against good teams have been iffy. 2-5 against playoff teams. 0-5 against the top three NFC teams based on record in terms of the Lions, the Vikings, and the Eagles. Against the better teams, the Packers have fallen a bit short time after time, whereas the Eagles have another 14-win season here. By the way, shout out to Nick Sirianni. The only other coaches since the year 2000 to have multiple 14-win seasons, Bill Belichick and Andy Reid. You could say what you want about Nick Sirianni, but the guy is a winner. The guy wins football games. As well, Josh Jacobs is certainly a concern. Ripped us for 5.3 per carry, Emmanuel Wilson. The Packers' attack against Philly should probably be to run the ball. Jordan Love, he could be a little turnover happy. The Eagles' defense has been forcing turnovers. Not counting the Giants week, but the 2 weeks before that, Commanders and Cowboys, the Eagles in those two games combined for 9 turnovers while the starters were playing. Jayden Reed cooked us up last time. 4 for 138 and a touchdown. He was in the slot, guarded by Avonte Maddox a ton. Cooper DeJean will be in the game now. I'm not saying Coop's going to completely shut him down. I think Jayden Reed is the biggest weapon for the Packers because speedy guys like that in space can trip up the Eagles sometimes. But this isn't your average Eagles defense. This isn't last year's Eagles defense. I like what the Eagles are looking at here in this game. And personally, I like the Eagles' path too. The Detroit getting the 1 seed, obviously great, but they're going to have to either play Jayden in the command, assuming we win. They'll have to play Jayden Daniels in the Commanders, who would have just been coming off of a playoff win, or Matthew Stafford or that Vikings team. Whereas the Eagles' path is, we're likely to be facing the Buccaneers, or I guess theoretically we could play the Vikings or Rams as well. But the Rams, we could run all over. So I am not too worried about our path to the NFC Championship. When we talk about the NFC Championship, we'll see who we're playing there, but it obviously, the games get harder as you go on, the teams get better. But I like the Eagles matchup here versus the Packers personally. I think that Jalen Hurts has leveled up his game tremendously since week one, obviously. And it's not to say that the Packers haven't, but the Packers just haven't struck in me as a real contender for a lot of the year. They have the talent, but I do think, again, in these big playoff games, they do lack a true wide receiver one. And Jayden Reed lit us up last time, but we've seen Jayden Reed go 0 for 0, goose eggs this season. And we haven't seen that for a guy like A.J. Brown, who's a true stud. I think the Eagles have more weapons on offense and a better defense and are playing at home. And you try to take your bias out of these things. Obviously, you can't do that 100%, but all signs point to an Eagles victory. They opened up the betting as -3.5 favorites, and they've been bet up to -4.5. The early money is coming on Philly. I completely understand it. The Eagles, this is not a bad matchup for us. Let me know what you think your keys to the game are. We're going to talk more about this matchup throughout the week, but that's basically my first initial reactions to the Eagles drawing the Green Bay Packers in round one of the NFL playoffs.